Yeah. So
Yeah.
if we take a step back a little bit and just look at
Yeah.
the current procurement landscape in terms of digital transformation, what are you seeing in the market, and why do you think you're seeing these particular patterns and trends?
Okay. So there's a couple of things. I'm gonna talk just procurement in general
Yeah.
first, and then I'm
Yep.
gonna get into digital procurement.
Okay.
So and actually a good friend of mine kind of brought this up. He said, at first we were there to save money, and then it became to save the company, which is risk, looking at risk, understanding what risk might be. And now we're being asked to save the world. Right. And I was like, that is so true. And you take a step back over my career, which is, 20 plus years now, that is totally spot on. I mean, we've transformed so much as an organization. And I think one of the challenges that leaders have right now is getting our heads around that, right? We know we've been talking about ESG and we've been talking about how to save the world, but have we really reimagined how we're getting the work done and the tool sets that we're using to get that done? Some people are starting to do that. Some people are not, but it feels like some leaders come to me and they're like, it just feels like work is being piled onto us. And those are the moments where we can truly transform the organization and what we do and think about things differently. We're being given that great gift, that catalyst to create the change. And we need to have leaders who are going to walk through that door and really think about things differently. So that's the I would say the foundation of some of my comments on the digital transformation side, because I think we're ripe for a complete transformation of how we think about digital procurement. When digital procurement started, it was taking physical processes, right? So how to get a rec to a purchase order to an invoice being paid, and we took that digital. In this day and age, it's really about how do we reimagine the work with the tools that we have to create a difference in the world. So that's really what I want to get after. So AI is going to be huge. You have a lot of like new intake thought and philosophy around how we manage work through the procurement organization and beyond. I think that intake alone is going to transform a lot of what we do if we apply it correctly. We're going to see a lot more tools that are specific to certain areas to optimize those areas. I mean, I already tell people right now, I mean, there's well more than probably 1,000 different procure techs out there. And I think that's going to continue to expand. And we're going to continue to see a lot of investment in the area. We just had a huge announcement from a procure tech last week or earlier this week, I can't remember, $44 million investment, and they're, still pre go to market. So that is a huge amount of money going into the procurement space. So I feel like I think there's going to be a lot of cool stuff happening in the next couple of years in this space.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. We're exhibiting at the Digital Procurement World Conference in Amsterdam
Ooh, yeah,
next week after, I think.
yeah,
And you're right, the procure tech sector has grown so rapidly. I think buyers are a bit confused in
they
some
are.
ways.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit of a kind of maze to navigate. And incumbent technologies sometimes don't help the process in terms of what they might have sold in they can do versus what's
Yeah.
actually possible or realistic. But it's a fascinating area, and like you say, it's an area that's ripe for transformation because it's so immature compared to, for example, the marketing function and
Yeah, or
marketing
sales.
technology.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's going to be interesting. What I see that is going to happen, because people have made investments in the end-to-end technologies, but even those end-to-end technologies don't do great in all spaces, right? So we're going to see kind of this hybrid model continue to develop, where they're going to continue to leverage their base end-to-end and then layer on the different point solutions where there's weakness per company, right? Because everyone has a different need in different areas. They might be more services heavy or manufacturing heavy. So it really depends on what the need is. But I think eventually there's going to be a migration off of the core technologies and into a space where you have an interconnected web of different point solutions that meet your needs.
Yeah,
So I
I
think
mean,
it's not going to happen overnight for sure, but I think there's going to be an evolution there.
yeah, I think you're right, and that's certainly the view that kind of frontline industry commentators like Dr. Eloise Epstein from Kearney,
Mm-hmm.
certainly her
Mm-hmm.
view and the way she kind of maps out the market. And I think it is a confusing market at the moment. There are a lot of
Yes.
technology players out there. However, that will it will organize itself to a certain degree, in the sense that, these heavily funded startups, or maybe not so heavily funded startups, will either sink or swim. What is it?
Yeah.
4 out of 5 startups don't make it past year 2 or something like that. So I think the market will shake itself out in a similar
Mm-hmm.
way to how other markets have evolved. And it'll become more obvious which areas require that specialist expertise, which parts of the process need specific technology to make that to get that to where it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
And connecting it all together is a fascinating thing as well, but quite often less complicated, in my experience, than people might initially imagine. So it's a bit of a journey of discovery for organizations. And I guess that's where people like yourself can really, open their eyes in terms of the conversations and your knowledge of what's going on in the market.
Yeah, and it's interesting from my point of view, because I talked about user adoption earlier on. When you get fragmented systems, one of my concerns and part of why I was motivated to start Wonder Services was because you can get these wonderful spot solutions, but you need to be really strategic about the user experience. Like how does a user move through that landscape to get what they need at the end of the day? And so I think there's going to be a lot of work around that. Intake is going to be part of it, but I think it's also going to transform procurement into, instead of the conversation for procurement has always been come to procurement, right? We need to be engaged early, come to procurement. Everything is around, we need you to come to procurement. But I think what is going to happen with technology is that we're going to go to where the people are and be there next to them as they're doing their work versus requesting them to come to us. So that I think is going to be a really cool way to kind of reimagine what we're doing in procurement. Is let's not talk about come to procurement. Let's go to where they are, where they're transacting today, and involve us in that process through a technology so that we can have that interaction where we need to be, where procurement needs to be entered into the process.